Hello, Dental A Team listeners. This is Kiera Dent, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for being part of my Dental A Team family. I seriously love doing this podcast. I thought I was going to hate it, and I love it. I love it so much because I get to connect with you. I get to hear how this podcast is helping you and your practice be better. So if you have loved this podcast and you are willing to share, I would greatly appreciate if you'll share with your friends, if you'll leave us a review, if you'll give us 5 stars, anything you can do. Just like you guys grow your practices, we're trying to grow this podcast to positively impact the world of dental. This is how we get to grow our Dental A Team family. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy the show. Hey everyone, welcome to the Dental A Team podcast. We're your hosts, Kiera Dent
and Dr. Mark Costas.
Mark and I had this crazy idea that maybe we could combine a dentist and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. And Dental A Team podcast was created.
I'm a practicing dentist, a multiple practice owner, a dental performance coach, and the founder of the Dental Success Institute.
I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, current practice owner, and international dental consultant. Mark and I don't just understand you, we are you.
Our goal is to positively impact the world of dentistry by sharing our lessons learned from the road in hundreds of dental offices.
2 perspectives, 1 mission, to help dental professionals reach their full potential. Welcome to the Dental A Team podcast. Hello, Dental A Team listeners. This is Kiera, and you guys, I have one of my faves back with me, Dr. Summer Kassmel. She only has 1 A. You don't spell it Kasssamel, in case you all want to know, because I've done that. We've known each other for, 3 years? But Dr. Summer Kassmel, she is back today. We're going to dive into some real fun topics. But Summer, how are you today?
I am good, but I do want to remind you that don't forget, I misspelled your name forever. Do you remember that? And you were like, that's not my name.
I literally, though, just sent Summer a check. We were finishing up WDC stuff, so I had to mail a check to her, and I wrote your last name wrong again, so I had to just own it and put a little smiley face on it because I was like, shoot, again.
I know. It's okay. It's fine. It's a hard last name. I don't mind at all. So.
Well, Summer was also the one when I first met you, and you had 2 emails. So you came through as Summer Smith with your awesome, what is it? Hotmail? Is it a Hotmail account?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a retro Hotmail account.
So she was Summer Smith, and then she had Summer Kassmel, and I thought there were 2 different Summers for a very long time. And then I realized you're one and the same.
I know. I confuse people all the time. It's really fun, actually.
It's really fun. It's real fun. So Summer and I, we're gonna dive back into some topics that we have come up on. Summer does a really fantastic job with this. We talked about it before, but there's this whole topic of like monthly reviews or monthly check-ins, or Summer calls them PDPs, and we'll talk about the psychology behind why she actually calls them PDPs. But let's go into like what you do during these monthlies, because I have offices calling me like, what the heck am I supposed to do during these monthly one-on-ones? I feel like they're just a waste of time. So if you're on board, Summer, that's what I think would be a fun topic for today.
Yeah, I often get this question as well. And I'd love to say, I started these 10 years ago so brilliantly and they worked. But what I found is I was having what I called reviews only like once a year. And I found that was almost like just way too late in the game. And then they became an entitlement for a raise. It almost just became synonymous with, I'm having my yearly review. Now I get a raise. And what I'm finding is I actually created that culture of every year, this is what's going to happen. And there was no expectation tied to it. It was kind of just a come in, we'll chat. Okay, you've been here. It's another $1.
The expectation is thanks for hanging out with me for a year. I'm just going to pay you to be my friend. Beautiful.
Exactly. Okay. I'm going to pay you just to kind of come and do whatever it is you do. And so what I realized, and I really have to give acknowledgement to a friend of mine down in Denver. He is an amazing doctor. We both know. Yes. He actually was the one who introduced me to more of calling them PDPs, which is performance development program. And so I've always hated reviews because it just, you and I both agree, Kiera, it just kind of has this bad connotation to it. That,
it's like, come review me. Come tell me what I'm doing wrong. And then give me a raise.
Scrutinized. Yes. Kind of the scrutiny. And then maybe I get money attached to it. And so I just disliked the whole thought of it. And what I found is as I changed the name and then made it to where initially I did them every single month when my team was smaller. And then as my team has grown, I do them every other month. I find that it's almost more exactly like you said, Kiera, like a check-in with them. And this PDP is, once again, we have a one sheet of paper that it has our core values on top, our 7 core values ranked 1 through 5, where they get to rank where they're at. And kind of a funny little side tangent to that is what we find is new team members read those, and often in their first 3 months of PDPs, they're ranking themselves like a constant 5. I'm amazing. I'm awesome. The more they kind of steep in our culture and go to meetings and listen to the podcast and read the same books that we're all reading.
I totally agree with you, Summer. Like when they start listening to the podcast, like you start changing. And when you start doing that personal development, things start changing. So what did you notice would change as people started getting more and more immersed into your culture?
Yes. As they started recognizing kind of the standard in which everybody on the team was holding themselves to, they stopped maybe giving themselves all 5s and started saying to themselves, like, growth minded is one of our core values. And what is it? We actually define what that looks like. And people were like, gosh, maybe I'm not quite as growth minded as I thought. Or one of ours is gratitude and grace. They thought they were the most grateful, grace extending person in the world. And as they really started looking at it on a day-to-day basis, they were like, I'm only going to give myself a 3, this time. Mm-hmm. So it's been nice because one, it reinstates our core values to start with. Then we have a middle section about their motivation and what they're willing to do to get the outcomes that they hope for. And then we also ask them, what's your fear? What's the fear of you, trying to strive for this? What do you fear as a result of doing it? Because a lot of times it's like, gosh, I don't want to be disliked, or that I'm going to fail, or what have you. And then we assess their skill sets. Like what actions are they really confident in? What behaviors they would want to see as a development opportunity. And then we ask them about, are they prepared for all meetings and huddles? And then we go into something that, as everybody knows, I love No Ego, the podcast, the book. I love it. It's really changed how our teams talk to each other. But we kind of put in a little employee value tool as really just a self-awareness tool. We tell everybody, this isn't really for us to judge. This is for you to become more self-aware. And the neat thing is, Kiera, is it ranks them on current performance, on their future potential, meaning how prepared are they for whatever is the next change or whatever's coming next. And then you take that number and you subtract out the emotional expense that they bring to the team, meaning how much wasted drama, energy, gossip, things like that, can they honestly say they've been a part of, whether it's in their own head or outwardly to their team. Mm-hmm. And what you do is you take that number times 3. And the point is often we've had some team members who are like, oh my goodness, I was a negative number this time. Because I realized that, like, oh my gosh, I was in my head making up all these stories and what have you. And the point is, we say, is like, you know what, it's just to make you aware that perhaps how amazing you are is being overshadowed by the amount of drama that you're bringing either to the team, to yourself, what have you. So that's how we kind of do it. We sit with the team member, Debbie and I, for about, it usually ends up being between 20 and 30 minutes. We go through it, and it really does spur on times to challenge them, to support them. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Of course, there's been tears, there's been celebration, but it gives them a chance so much more frequently to feel like they get the attention of myself, of Debbie, of department heads, things like that. And they get to hear what they're doing really amazingly well and where we really want to help guide and support them to getting a better result for next time.
I really like that. And I want to ask some clarifying questions. Do you just have them rate themselves? Do you also rate them before they come in? Do the department heads give feedback? Because I know that's a struggle with some offices where the office manager or the doctor's reviewing these team members or checking in, and they don't even know that person's position. So how do you navigate through that?
That's such a great question. I do have the department heads rate all doctors. I have the department heads obviously rate the people in their department. I don't have, say, my lead hygienist rate the scheduling coordinator.
Sure.
I don't do that now only because on a day-to-day basis, you're right, she couldn't fill all of that out. But the lead hygienist is going to rate all the hygienists in her department. Debbie's going to rate kind of where she's at. I'll be honest, I don't have as much one-on-one attention with all these people on a day-to-day basis. So I don't always necessarily know my opinion is the most valid when it comes to frontline work of what they're doing.
So then the department heads rate all these team members before they come in for these PDP meetings. And then the team member will also rate themselves. So then they come in and it's like how they rated themselves versus how the department head rated them. Is that how you work through that?
Correct. Exactly.
Okay, beautiful. I really love this. And Summer, I'm putting you on the spot, but I don't mean to. Would you be willing to share this form so other people can kind of see? Because as you said that, I was like, gosh, like that's really, really fantastic. I love the pieces and I just like to see what other people do. We're happy to share ours as well. Because, and then there's something else that I heard from another office. They actually said that every month they change up the questions. So before they do it, and they'll ask specific questions to the team members that they know they want to work on. So if they know so-and-so is having a hard time being on time, they actually would change up some of the questions in this performance development program to make sure that they're actually answering the questions honestly of some of the areas that they know they're great. Have you ever tried that? Because I heard that this weekend and I was like, oh, that's so clever. I love it.
That is clever, and what I would say is I think that's a really cool way to kind of challenge them to improve for the next meeting. The only thing that we do is a lot of times we'll pose those challenges in an area that we recognize during either the motivation, skill set, or core values exercise that they do. If we notice something that needs to be a challenge, we'll challenge them and then hold them responsible for bringing it to the next meeting when they come to say, okay, what improvements did we see here? Or what system did you implement to create that improvement? But I love how it's like, we put the onus on the team member to come up with it, but I love like changing the questions just to see like how aware are they? How prepared are they? So
okay, so let's actually do, if you're open to it, I will be your team member. You'll be the doctor or the regional. Like walk me through how you do this because like I heard it conceptually. And I think something that you and I did at WDC, which I thought was brilliant, and thank you to your team again for doing this, but we actually had them role play out a morning huddle because you can hear it and we talk through all the steps, but then when you actually go through this, and it's going to be kind of weird because I'm clearly not your employee, but I think if you're open to it, like let's kind of walk through this and ask me and I would rate myself and we don't have to do the whole thing, but just so, because when you said like motivation, I'm not 100% clear what that is and how you guys would do that. So if you're open to that, are you good if we kind of go through how this would look?
Sure. And I think really you may just need to let me know too, Kiera, where I need to stop or move along if it's not necessarily helping.
No, I think it'll be great. This is totally unscripted and I think you guys are going to love it because this is just how we roll. So, okay. So I would come in, I would have filled this out. So go through the questions and I'll just answer as if I were a team member.
So what it is we have the core values, the 7 core values listed out. To the side of that is a 1 through 5. So what we have is like, say you would come in, you'd start with number 1, which for us is servant's heart, serving the patients and the team before me, providing a wow experience for every patient. You, Kiera, would rate yourself as a 1 to a 5. Okay. And so more or less, when that person comes in, they come in and literally say, number 1, I gave myself a 3. Number 2, I gave myself a 4. And we're literally kind of documenting what they wrote. We let them go all the way down through all 7 of them, giving us those numbers. At that point, we stop them and say, awesome. Okay, here's what your department head said. Number 1, 3 to 4. If there's something that was way off, we will address it then. But here's what I'll tell you is with practice and with development of our leadership team, we make it a priority that there is no team member who comes into my office and is taken by surprise with these numbers.
Awesome.
Because that's the worst feeling in the world is they gave themselves a 5 and we're like, yikes, your department head said you're a 2. They shouldn't know that at that meeting. They should have known ahead of time that was coming. Because if not, we were never honest and respectful with that team member to start with.
I love what you just said there because I think so often we tiptoe around thinking that people pleasing, telling them they're doing an awesome job, really benefits. And I'm going to use an example. Summer, you and I did a meeting a couple weeks ago and we ran it traction style where we actually rated the meeting at the end of it. And I remember I gave it I gave it a high number and you gave it a much lower number. And I asked you, and I appreciate that you were honest, and it gave me freedom to be more honest in my meetings with my team members. But I asked you, you said, well, it took us a long time to get to the point. And, I think next time we should set aside like, this is Kiera summer catch up time. So that way we know like starting the meeting now. And I loved that feedback. And I realized you've been practicing that within your practice. So it's very common for you to give direct and straightforward feedback as opposed to sugarcoating. And I think that that's a practice and a skill that truly is practiced and nurtured over time. But I will say the more direct and transparent you can be in the spirit of wanting to do personal development, which is why I love that you call this the personal development program. I really think that your team members start to be more honest and straightforward and direct, getting you to the results you want in the most efficient, transparent, and loving way possible.
Exactly. Well, and I know it sounds weird, but I'm telling you, I feel very strongly that it creates the most safe environment.
You're
These
absolutely
people
right.
They aren't wondering, is somebody talking behind my back? Is so-and-so saying this? That just doesn't happen because we all know, like, they know from me, I will always come straight to them if I see something. I will never, say it to only one person and then be secretly grumpy about it. Mm-hmm. And same with, this team, it makes it to where the environment just feels safer because hey, I'm going to get lots of love and praise. I'm going to, as Tiffany loves to say, I'm going to get that bucket filled. But at the same time, I know then when they are honest and direct with me, they're truly doing it from a place of, I want to see you improve. And that just feels safer.
It does. And like I will say as a team member, how much more freeing is that to know that I will get honest feedback? And also as a team, like I know that there are times that I've had conversations that I want to have even with my team right now. And I feel I'm pretty good at this, but like I will even tiptoe and I'll shy away from certain conversations because I'm like, oh, I don't know that I really want to have that. But really, if you can create that culture and that practice, I know it's safer. I know it's more transparent. It's more efficient, and it becomes more in line with your true integrity. I know I struggle when I am sitting there like, yeah, that was great. And I'm like, it wasn't really that great. So why am I saying the words that don't align with my true integrity? Well, I don't want to hurt their feelings. Right. But then they're always wondering if I'm truly giving them honest feedback or if I'm just saying something to make them feel better.
Yes. It's like, do you like this shirt? And it's like, oh, I mean, yeah. And then really you find out later that they were saying that your shirt was ugly to somebody. You're like, well, I can't trust you with anything now.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't know. And I would say, I know that I have friends in my life. Summer, you're one of them. And I love that we can be very honest. I think it's funny because this last weekend, I remember we were saying goodbye to each other. And I remember I called you and I was like, Summer, I don't feel you're being honest with me in this situation. And it wasn't intentional on your part. And you've called me out too, like, Kiera, I don't think you're being upfront or saying what you truly feel. And I love friends that will challenge me that way and will say those things because I'm like, you're right. I am not saying what I truly feel right now. Like, thank you for recognizing that so I can fix that pattern. And it's so cool because when you can have your team that way, you can have friends that way, you start to be so direct. And I even watched it, like you and Tarly and Dr. Jason Tenori. I watched you guys at the event we were at, and all three of you were very direct with people. So it wasn't this uncomfortable situation that's like, oh, we got to go talk to them about this. No, that's just part of everyday common jargon. And I think that your culture of having these PDPs on a regular basis really fosters and encourages that and creates more of a habit of this style of communication as opposed to we don't really tell you truthfully what we think about you.
Yes. Well, and I think in safe environments, people flourish so much faster. And we'll kind of work through the process, but it's kind of like if they're spending so much time on emotional drama, which can be that they're trying to protect themselves in an unsafe environment. So if they're feeling like they're constantly defensive or they're just trying to make it through the day without getting, targeted or feeling like people are talking about them, think about how much more somebody can flourish in their position if they're not having to be on the other side of that. And so that's kind of the goal of having these more readily and honestly with all department heads beforehand, before the meeting ever happens, and then while they're in that meeting. So hopefully that's clear on like what we do for the core value part.
Totally.
And then we move on to motivation. And like I said, I'll be happy to share the form so that you can kind of see it or whoever can see it. But we say motivation wise, if you did rate yourself a 3 or above, in the above numbers, what is your plan to develop yourself in this area?
Meaning a 3 or above on the core values?
Yeah, a 3 or below.
A 3 or below. Sorry, thank you.
Yep. So, if you put yourself on accountability, which is one of our core values, you put yourself as a 2, What's your plan to develop yourself there? Is there a plan? Did you come into this meeting thinking, this is not who I want to be? What am I going to do for next time? So that's where I was like, I love that question. That you heard this weekend about they change their questions. We sometimes end up getting to that result just by this line of questioning with motivation. So bring it back to the next meeting.
It's not like what my motivation is. It's what my motivation is to fix the areas within the core values. What the plan is. Okay.
Yes.
Super clear.
Yes. And then what are you willing to do to get that outcome? Are you willing to wake up a little earlier? Are you willing to, listen to a podcast on your own time? And then once again, like I said, what do you fear is getting in the way of that action? Because sometimes people make the best plans or what have you. But when it comes down to it, they're not going to implement because there's stuff that's getting in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to know that too, so that we can help as a support team as to help them work through. Can we get rid of that obstacle or find a way around it?
So what if I were
to say, the motivation.
What if I were to say on that the fear is that I'm afraid of failure? What would you guys say to that? So like, I didn't rate myself as well on a servant heart. I think I put myself ahead of other people on the regular basis. So my motivation would be that I am actually going to find one person every single day that I can serve to create a pattern for it. But my fear of failure, like the fear holding me back, is that I'm going to fail in this because I naturally just tend to think about myself. What would you say to something like that?
Well, first thing I would say is, so if you fail, so you're fearful of it,
mm-hmm.
What's going to happen if you do? Tell me what's the worst case scenario. What does that look like?
I'm just going to,
because I want to know.
I'm going to have to rate myself a 2 next time I come in. Like that's probably the worst thing that'll happen. Right. And I'll let you guys down because I'm not at a 5.
Okay. So see, that's just it, is it's letting people down, right? Failure means I let people down. And I have to acknowledge that I've let people down. So that would be your fear, Kiera. Then let's think through the next circumstance that comes up that you have the chance to kind of challenge yourself. I want you to do it with no fear of retribution. I can guarantee you 100%, myself, Debbie, and your leadership team will support you. We want you at the very next option that you have to challenge yourself to do it and then report it. That's it. That's all we're asking. And so if we know that what the fear is and what's at the root of that fear, then we can give them that support, at least verbally, sometimes resource-wise, to overcome it to the best they can. And then we really do, as a leadership team, allow people to have that challenge, because failure is a huge one, obviously, but sometimes the reason people don't want to fail is for all sorts of reasons. Like you said, letting people down or being embarrassed or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can give them the tools, the resources, and the verbal acknowledgement of we will not be upset with you no matter what the outcome, then, it's amazing that people will take just that small step. And as they accumulate small steps, the fear starts to diminish.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing from month to month to month what these people can end up doing when that fear has been conquered by just our support.
So what I love is you don't just surface level these, like you dive deep into it because you truly are invested in your teams. And I think so often we're like, well, let's just check off these reviews, get them done. But we don't take the time to figure out how do we actually help these people grow? What's really holding them back to take them to the next level? And I think that that's a whole cultural change of mindset of we're not just doing things to checklist them because we heard about them on a podcast, but we're truly doing them with the intent to grow our team and that's what I love that these are called performance development program, because it is a performance development. Like we're not just sitting here reviewing you, we're helping you develop into a higher version of yourself. And that's even in the title of these check-in meetings. So I love that you just take the time to like sink right into those to make them truly beneficial to these team members, that you care about them. And then you give them the space to go explore in a safe area because they know you'll give them the feedback and they know that you're there to support them as well.
Well, and it's funny because I've gotten the question like, well, who's got time for this? My answer is, who doesn't have time to invest in the people that make you look good? Like they are, people are really, truly our biggest investment. But I'm like, gosh, like there's nothing better to invest in. Like sometimes we'll spend more time learning how to use a tarot than we will in the people that are serving our patients.
Right.
And so I feel so strongly that, I just had one, because as you know, this came about because this is kind of the process we're going through these last couple of days, Debbie and and I hear people all the time like, oh, who's got time for this? I'm like, I don't have time not to do this and check in with the people. And I had one just yesterday where when it came down to it, she was rating herself just so low. And what's funny is I said, this must be an internal thing you're going through. Tell me more about what's going on. And when it came down to it, she was struggling at home. And she said, I feel that it's really affecting my performance and I'm sorry. And I recognize it. And I'm so thankful. And literally, she just left me a note of thank you so much for taking the time to just hear this is what's going on in my life. It doesn't mean we're going to not have her be accountable. She knew that and we knew that. But it was more so, can we give you the support in this moment to get you through it? And sometimes it is just a quick card. It's just a quick, hey, I've got your back. And it's amazing how we have this amazing employee that if we just don't take the time, sometimes they start to feel as if maybe nobody's actually seeing them, truly them, not just what they do in that office, but them as a person.
Right. You're exactly right. I was on a podcast earlier and we talked about how we sometimes feel like these people become checklists. Like, did I check in with them? Did I get this payroll done?
Yes.
Did I get their schedule done? And we forget that they're a human being working right next to us, like a human being, not just a checklist, not just a person. They're somebody that we truly care about, and finding out about them. Something else you mentioned on that was you said, who doesn't have time for like not to do this? And I totally agree with you, because I want to spin the coin of the other side. For sure. You can say that you don't have time to do these. How long do they usually take you, Summer, on average per person?
20 to 30 minutes usually.
So 20 to 30 minutes. You have a lot of team members, so that's a lot of hours. However, I will spin the coin. Yes, every other month you're doing these. You're spending the time, 20 to 30 minutes, checking in, seeing how they're doing, making sure we've got a plan for each person. Beautiful. They now have a directed course of how to get where they want to go and what's going to benefit the company the most. But if you choose not to do this, think of all the time you'll spend having people in your office complaining, having to make sure that they're staying accountable, checking all those end of day checklists because they're not staying accountable to it, that they're not getting patients back on time, that they're not checking their team. Like, you want to talk about a time suck? That's the time suck. That's the one that hurts. That's the one that, and it's not even productive. It's just putting out fires all day long because we're not being proactive. We're being reactive all day long.
Yeah. You're spending all your time in corrective actions, versus just taking the time to find out where they're not succeeding in the first place, why that is. And literally, it can sometimes just be, literally, I write down notes constantly as these people are talking. And sometimes I can figure out a solution within the confines of that 20 minutes. Okay, hey, I see, Allison. It's just, let's put you and this person on a text together, and you guys are going to figure out how to incorporate software that's going to make everybody's life easier from here on out.
Right.
That was a 5-second fix, So it's amazing where, like you said, a lot of times without this, we're putting out fires throughout, like I said, we're doing corrective actions when really we could have solved it so much easier just by sitting down for 30 minutes and talking to that person.
Genius. I love it. Okay. So we go through the core values. I rate myself. You guys rate it. We go through the motivation to improve where I gave myself below a 3. What happens if they don't have below a 3?
Great. If they're truly like, hey, I am, and we agree, perfect. Now, sometimes we'll say, hey, you're really killing it. These last 2 months, you've killed it. Amy was one of those. Now, granted, she didn't rate herself like that. Sure. She still had a few things that she's like, oh, I just don't think I'm great. But she killed it. I mean, she had a wonderful 2 months in her hygiene department. And so we absolutely celebrated with her. But we still gave her a challenge to stretch herself just a little bit more. Okay, Amy, we know now you can do it. And here's what we can expect from you for the next time. What do you need to kind of get yourself in that position? Because we, as you know, as we've talked about, we have kind of a new challenge for our department heads. And so even if they do rate themselves that high, we'll still probably find something that we think they can be challenged in to kind of continue to motivate them to grow.
So it sounds like it's very rare that we give 5s. Is that accurate?
What's funny is somehow in our hiring process, we just don't tend to have people who will consistently say, I'm a 5 everywhere. Almost everybody on this team is like, and we've got a few that are, like, hey, I give myself a 4.5. I'm pretty awesome, but I always see room for improvement. That's usually what I end up hearing.
Got it. Okay. I love that. So we go through that. What's the final part of this? So then we have skill set, and that's where we say, what 3 actions are you confident in that you should keep doing? We do this on purpose. And I absolutely want to just say that was a Debbie comment.
is Debbie just noticed, she was like, we need to really celebrate what people are already doing well. And so what's funny is we have some people who it's so easy for them to identify their superpowers. But sometimes we have to help people see in themselves what we see in them.
Right.
So we have them start, as the more they do it, the more they become confident in what they're super in. And then what behaviors do you see?
The team lead also writes 3 skill sets that they see them very confident in as well, correct?
Yes.
Which is super rad. That was a point I wanted to make, because that way they're saying that 3 things that they love, but also the department head's telling them. So it's like a double win of hearing things that you do really well in this whole performance program.
Yeah. Well, and what's even neat too is then Debbie will see superpowers and I see superpowers. And so they get to hear kind of this layer upon layer of, let's celebrate what you truly are amazing in. And then we have, what behaviors do you see as a development opportunity, which oftentimes goes hand in hand with the above one.
Is it
and then
1, 2, or 3? How many of those do they list?
So what behaviors do you see? We allow them to do however many they want.
Okay.
So they can list, 1 or 7, whatever they think.
Okay.
It's pretty rare to have more than 1 or 2, just because they can't be working on all of them
Correct.
at once.
That's what I was curious, because a lot of people will hash themselves across the back and say, I'm terrible at everything. But you can't fix all those things. So that's why I was curious if you limit it or if they can do whatever, but got it. Okay.
Yep. And then we have a question of, I attend all huddles and meetings fully prepared, and participate in the primary goals of the meetings. We do this because we find that people who are preheated and engaged in those meetings, we do follow, just like you, EOS system and things like that. People who come ready and ready to engage, our meetings obviously get rated consistently so much higher. And we found that the reason we added that question was just we had a struggle sometimes with an entire team being ready. So now they recognize, hey, this is something I'm accountable for. Nobody's going to make me ready. It's my job. And once again, if they rated themselves 3 or below, we want to know what their plan is, what resources they need, and then we ask them to find an accountability partner for those meetings. Hey, so-and-so, this is how I prepared. Do you see anything else I should do to be better prepared?
Okay.
So
I like that. I like that a ton. And so you're not doing anything about, are they hitting their production goals? Are they doing this? You're really focused on core values, because that will ultimately fix those other issues as well.
We do. We don't do that in our reviews. Their KPIs, yes, they have them. And they're going to have to be accountable for those KPIs to the team in our big monthly meetings with the team. But when it comes to just sitting with that team member for this performance development review, I mean, honestly, that's what we hire them on. That's what we talk about all the time and what we refer back to. It just feels like that's the most important thing, is kind of culturally where they're at.
Got it. I love that so much. And thank you for taking time to really dive into that. And then how do you check in with these at the end of it? So you have all these goals that we're going to work on. We've got a plan. How do you check in from there?
So Debbie actually takes them all back and records everything into kind of a spreadsheet form. And if the thing is that they have an action item they're responsible for, they are responsible for them. That's something we're really working hard on as a team and as department heads, is creating team members who become accountable for creating the behaviors that will move the needle forward, not the department heads or Debbie being the person. So
got it. Super helpful. All right, Summer, you just crushed that one. I love it so much. And I love that we dove deep. I hope all of you truly check these, because if you can dive into this, it's not just checking the boxes anymore. This is I see how this is truly a performance development program. We're developing these people under our realm because we want them to grow and to develop. So Summer, as always, thank you. Thanks for being on the podcast. Thanks for sharing your information. You've developed such an incredible culture that I just love that you're so willing to share with all of our listeners. So thank you.
Oh, our pleasure. We're always happy to help. And it all has come with a lot of work, for sure.
It has. And I love, and if any of you have ideas or tips of things that you're doing that work really well, please share, because I think as a whole community of the Dental Aid team, we can grow and elevate each other to a higher level. So Summer, as always,
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Of course. All right, Dental Aid team listeners, this wraps it up, and I'll catch you next time on the Dental Aid Team Podcast. And that wraps it up for another episode of the Dental A Team podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.